Recently, we got some much-needed clarification regarding the 2 new Warner Brothers films that are set concurrently within the time frame of Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings trilogy. The first we're all aware of is The Hunt for Gollum, but we also got some interesting comments from Philippa Boyens about the second film as well. This is an article by Empire. The Hunt for Gollum won't be 2 films, but a second Lord of the Rings film is incoming, Philippa Boyens confirms. So it wasn't that long ago, Ian McKellen was doing an interview and he said that he was in discussions currently that Andy Serkis had talked with him. He's going to be directing at least the Hunt for Gollum film and obviously reprising his role. But he was in discussions with Ian McKellen, and in that interview, he said that it was 2 films, that he heard it was 2 films. That kind of sparked some speculation there as to how this is going to stretch into 2 films, basically. So at least we have confirmation that as far as the Hunt for Gollum, that particular storyline, that's 1 film. I think that makes the most sense to fans and audiences. We have some clarification, though, that it is true that Ian McKellen did hear about the 2 films, but they're just 2 different films that he could be involved in. So we don't know what the other film is at this point. But the article says, earlier this year came seismic news from Middle-earth. More Lord of the Rings films are on the way from Warner Brothers, with Peter Jackson and his team producing, and familiar faces expected to return in front of the camera too. Then quickly came the reveal that one such upcoming project is titled The Hunt for Gollum, set shortly before the main events of the Fellowship of the Ring, and set to be directed by none other than Gollum himself, Andy Serkis. From there, all kinds of rumors and reports have spread, including the notion that The Hunt for Gollum will be split into 2 films, which originated from an interview with Gandalf actor Sir Ian McKellen. But as Lord of the Rings screenwriter Philippa Boyens tells Empire, things have got a little lost in Elvish translation. Her quote is, "I can tell you definitively it isn't 2 films." She says, "That was a genuine misunderstanding that happened because we've begun to work conceptually on 2 different live-action films. The first being The Hunt for Gollum, the second one still to be confirmed." So there is 2 films. It was just the confusion was whether those 2 films were just The Hunt for Gollum. I think people are more excited, I guess, about that fact because they weren't sure how this story was going to be stretched out into 2 films. But to have it be one complete story, I think that will play out better too. Even in just 1 film, Boyens promises a gripping tale to be told in Serkis's feature, saying, quote, "It's quite an intense story, which falls after the birthday party of Bilbo and before the Mines of Moria." She explains, "It's a specific chunk of incredible untold story told through the perspective of this incredible creature." I just do wonder, like, is it going to be from his perspective? Mostly? To me, when I first heard about this concept, it sounded like they had just recycled the concept from the failed Gollum game. The more I hear about it, it keeps sounding more like that. But obviously, I think this format is better because that Gollum game was horrible. I mean, we're going to have to set the stage probably with Gandalf if it's going to show us Bilbo's birthday party. How did The Hobbit begin? Or in the extended versions too, or with Bilbo and he's talking about his stories, some sections of There and Back Again. Maybe that's how they'll begin it in a similar way. I don't know, maybe not. Might be too derivative then. But yeah, so Bilbo's birthday, well, that's when he goes on the hunt, was after he went to investigate the ring when he left it with Frodo. And at some point, we're going to be following Gollum. I think it will be more, his perspective. The characters he'll be encountering could be interesting if well done. Again, if they have this firm grasp on the story, the characters, his journey, at least we know it's not going to be stretched out to 2 films. But what else do they have in mind? Because the other film, obviously they are in discussions with Ian McKellen on. So even if it's not the 2 film, Hunt for Gollum, it's just the 1. But if Gandalf is going to be in the other film, the other live action film, so obviously that's the story that they're going to go with, that Gandalf will be involved somehow. Philippa Boyens continues, as for why McKellen might have thought The Hunt for Gollum would be a 2-parter, there's a good reason for that. We're playing around with a number of ideas, but most of those ideas do include Gandalf. So Gandalf would potentially return for 2 live-action films. Plus, if the anime feature The War of the Rohirrim, on which Boyens is a writer-producer, proves to be a success this December, there could be more animated Middle-earth stories too. We have an absolute banger of a second film that would just be incredible as an anime, she teases. But let's see if there's an appetite for it. So she's talking about another idea for a film, but she doesn't know if it's animated or not. Well, I know people were concerned that the butter scraped over too much bread analogy. when it comes to The Hobbit, spread over 3 films, and even more so with The Hunt for Gollum, that specific storyline, just a couple conversations. But at least we know, okay, so Hunt for Gollum is just one movie, but Gandalf will be involved potentially in both. Make of that what you will. To what extent, it's unclear, but they gotta do this soon, either way. Hopefully it'll be a much better filming experience for the actor this time around. So I think Ian McKellen said that he was gonna likely receive the script at the start of the new year, at the start of 2025. So that's the stage that they're at for the development of the Hunt for Gollum one. But in thinking about this second film, many fans would love to see a story featuring the war in the North. So for those who are unfamiliar, 1,000 years into the Third Age, when Sauron took form in the world again and established the fortress at Dol Guldur, this signaled the return of the 9 Nazgul, and their chief, who would later become known as the Witch King of Angmar, set about to enact his master's will by warring with the descendants of the faithful of Numenor, and proceeded to wage war in the northern Dunedain realm of Arnor, which was the sister kingdom to Gondor, trying to carry out Sauron's plan to defeat the northern kingdoms altogether. The Witch King established Angmar, from where he launched open war against the Dunedain. And it was at this time that he became known as the Witch King, Lord of Angmar. Needless to say, a film centered around these events has all sorts of potential and really could be epic, and ultimately I think could serve as a really cool introduction and establishment of the Witch King as a fearsome antagonist as chief of the Nazgul. And ultimately, in those events of the war in the North, the Witch King does suffer defeat, but is successful in ushering in the downfall of these kingdoms of men. But I think having an ending featuring Glorfindel speaking prophetically of the Witch King's demise, but not at the hands of man, would be a really cool way to emphasize that hope is not lost, and serve to enrich the main story of The Lord of the Rings even further. As I said before, it would be a really cool way in this medium to flesh out the Witch King as an antagonist even further to such a rich degree that I think would make his smaller role as a villain in The Lord of the Rings that much more satisfying when Éowyn has her heroic victory against him and felling the Witch King. I think it would make that conflict even more satisfying, and seeing his time in The Lord of the Rings even more enriched when we have this huge epic backstory. And ultimately, that's what I hope these new films can accomplish, which is to provide a new, exciting medium for these epic stories that serve as the foundation of this rich history that The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings are built off of. In my opinion, these stories can make for an epic cinematic experience. But it is my hope that whatever they decide to do, that it is written with care and with the desire to stay true to the spirit and quality of storytelling fitting of Tolkien's legendarium. But I'm curious to know what you think this second film after The Hunt for Gollum should be focused on. Is there a particular storyline you'd like to see adapted to live action or anime format? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe for more Lord of the Rings and other sci-fi and fantasy news and lore. And if you're looking for other ways to show your appreciation, you can check out my Patreon page, where members get access to exclusive content and perks. Thank you all so much for your support. And as always, have a very nerdy day.